Today, we're going to be talking about the outlook for remote legal jobs in 2023 and beyond. I'm really excited about this topic because I've got some data for you, some hard numbers today that is going to show you what we're seeing in remote legal. Here at LAWCLERK, our goal is to help create opportunities for contract attorneys, freelance lawyers to find opportunities to work with other lawyers who need your help and need your services. And so today we're going to talk about what the outlook is for those jobs, the ways to find jobs, and all the ways that we're striving very hard to help you succeed with your career as a freelance lawyer. So without further ado, let's get this started. Hey, William from, is that Louisiana? I love that. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my screen here and we're going to go here 1 second. And okay. All right. Thanks for bearing with me while I get that set up. So all right, folks, today we're going to dig into the outlook for remote legal jobs in 2023 and beyond, because we do have some data that shows some projections for the years ahead. But before that, I just kind of wanted to set the stage by asking, do we have any daydreamers out there in the audience? Have any of you ever been sitting at your desk at the law firm as a young associate, maybe daydreaming about all the things you could do with your legal career? Maybe someday you'd go in-house, or maybe someday you'd become a professor, or someday you'd start your own firm, or if you just want to travel the world and be a full-time freelancer. The exciting thing to me is that with a law degree, you really can do anything that you put your mind to. And so that's one of the most exciting and challenging things, is to figure out what you want to do with your legal career. And the cool thing is that more and more attorneys are turning to a full-time freelance career as a full-time contract attorney, full-time freelance lawyer, whatever you want to call it. It means the same thing. It means that it's a lawyer who does work for another lawyer in an outsourced freelance capacity to support the other attorney's firm. That can be written work, it can be appearance work, it can be a lot of different things. We'll talk about that. But for any of you daydreamers out there, the exciting thing is that there really has never been a better time to take the plunge and launch your own career as a freelance lawyer. And because there's a huge demand for legal services and a huge demand for remote legal help. So today we're going to cover a couple of things. We're going to cover the demand. We're going to go through what kinds of work are in demand, what work busy lawyers need help with. We're going to talk about some of the benefits of a freelance legal career. And probably most interesting to a lot of you, how much money can you make as a freelance lawyer? Like really, how much money can you make? And then lastly, but certainly not least, we'll talk through some of the options of ways you can find work and build your career as a freelance lawyer. So away we go. Okay. All right. So you probably already know that the pandemic in so many ways gave a kickstart to forcing legal to go remote. We had no choice. Some lawyers who had resisted technology and resisted new ways of doing things were forced into it when they suddenly found themselves having to figure out how to work from home when their team was all working from home too. And so, remote really led the way. We went remote very fast. And for a lot of lawyers, we've stayed there. We've seen the advantages to that. And, for that reason, it's fair to say that, the pandemic really permanently changed the way, where and how we work. And it's exciting. Lawyers finally recognize the benefits of cloud-based technology and the mobility that it would provide to them, their teams, and their clients. And so, this is the new world, folks. If you haven't already jumped on board and embraced this new remote work lifestyle, then you definitely need to give that another shot. But okay, what are some of the data that we see around remote work? This is really fascinating. So this chart comes to us from our friends at Clio, from their 2022 Clio Legal Trends Report. It's a free report. If you haven't read through it, it's a super easy read. They've got a really fun interactive copy on their web page now that you can access, Clio. But this is showing that over the span of January 2019 to July of 22, that's the report's time period, that the number of legal professionals working exclusively from an office has dropped quite a bit. Clio has found that today, fewer than 30% of lawyers continue to work only from the office, meaning exclusively from the office. So, comparing that to where we were in January of 2019, that is a massive, massive change. And along those same lines, that those changes extend to other members of a law firm too, beyond the lawyers. Probably the most, so these are percentages by groups, and probably the most dramatic shift and the most dramatic change was in the hybrid group, which is where about 10% of firms fall into hybrid. Before 2020, 80% of those firms, their team members worked exclusively from the office. But now by April or by mid 22, fewer than half work exclusively from an office. So we're seeing a big push to remote. And, this is what most lawyers want. They prefer remote and virtual work. A lot of them prefer meeting with clients virtually too, which is interesting. So this is, some data to show where legal has gone with remote. If you were curious, I think we all hear a lot of conversation about these topics, but it's interesting to have some actual data to support them. And it's great that we've gone remote because this is really what a lot of our clients want as well. They want the option for a virtual meeting when it's not necessary to meet in person. And so, this is good data to see as well, that it's also what our clients want. Now, some more data that came out from the Clio Legal Trends report is they found that the demand for legal services reached a record high in 2022, surpassing the dollar amounts we saw in 2019 even. In many ways, 2021 was a rebound year where legal was getting back on track. We were figuring out this new normal, and 2022 saw a huge growth in demand for legal services across the entire industry. Caseloads were up about 10%, which is a big number. So this shows us that there's a lot of work out there. And in fact, that's one of, I think, the big takeaways I want to share with you today is there's a lot of legal work out there, and there's a lot of unmet legal need that is still out there as well. And at the same time, we can be confident from the data that remote work is here to stay. And so these are really the two big reasons why we remain very bullish on remote legal work and only see continued growth in the future. Of course, the data we see internally here at LawClerk also shows us that, but we hold that a little close to home still. But I do have some data on remote legal work from a couple of other sources that I thought you might find interesting. So there's a company called Research and Markets. They just do research globally, and they are projecting a growth of about 30% for the global legal outsourcing market between now and 2027. So that's a growth of 30% in just a few more years, and now we're at 2023. So, at the end of the next 4 years, we're going to see this grow a huge amount. It's already a huge, the legal industry as a whole is gigantic. It's bigger than the US airline industry, bigger than the motion picture industry. And so knowing that the demand for legal services is growing, legal's gone remote, it makes sense that we could see as much of a 30% growth between 2021 and 2027. I'm sorry, guys, I just can't talk today. But this was just one research study that found this. And one is great, but when you can find two that shows very similar data, that's really encouraging. So this one comes from a different research company called Grandview Research, and they are also projecting nearly a 30% growth. They're projecting a 27.5% growth in what they call legal process outsourcing. It's legal outsourcing. So this would include both, paralegal outsourcing, attorneys, everything. But again, it matches up with the fact that we're seeing continual growth in the demand for legal services, that legal is recognizing all the benefits of a remote workforce, and they're also recognizing this is what lawyers want with their career. So this is another resource that is out there. If you want to dig some more into the numbers and the growth, go check out Grandview, and you can get a copy of their full report. So this is a big question that we get, what work are attorneys outsourcing specifically to other freelance lawyers? Because that's, as you know, is our niche here at LawClerk. We help match up busy firms with our nationwide network of freelance lawyers for that overflow work. And we are seeing, really, in a nutshell, everything. That's the spoiler alert. We're seeing everything get outsourced. When we first started the company, of course, we knew we would see a lot of family law and bankruptcy and criminal law work, of course. But we didn't expect to see the volume of really complex mergers and acquisitions and deals and really high level litigation, Supreme Court level litigation going through the site, and attorneys getting help from other talented attorneys. So in a nutshell, we see everything. Of course, we see, I don't have an exact number, but I would estimate about 65 to 70% of the work that comes through the site is litigation. So, 35% is on the transactional. We see a ton of research work, discovery, help with pleadings, correspondence, and blogs and marketing type materials, even some like firm administration type work. If you need help updating your engagement agreement, a lot of lawyers don't have time for that. So they hire a freelance lawyer to help with employee handbooks or, work from home protocols, or even, forms for new hires. So the sky is the limit, and attorneys are definitely getting very creative with maximizing the use of their own time and maximizing the ways they're leveraging the talents of freelance lawyers like you. What are the benefits of a freelance legal career? I probably don't need to go through that with this audience, because you all know it. You get to choose the kind of work you want to do. You get to choose how much you want to work and when and with who and where you want to work and all of those things. Those are the big benefits of choosing a freelance legal career. And we are seeing more and more lawyers take the plunge to move to a full-time freelance career. Legal has not been immune to the so-called Great Resignation. Last year, again, this is from the 2022 Clio Legal Trends Report, and they found that 37% of lawyers surveyed either had left or were considering leaving a job for better pay. And lawyers surveyed, about half say they prefer working from home. So, lawyers, this to me was interesting because money and pay wasn't the biggest. It was a big factor, but the numbers on it weren't like, over 50%. The larger number was the preference on working from home. A few more reasons on why lawyers are leaving. Of course, we've already hit on better pay. They want better work-life balance. That's a big one. They want more flexibility in their schedules. They want more control over their schedules. Maybe they dislike the manager. They want to work for themselves. They don't want to have that partner that they're dealing with day in and day out. Maybe they dislike the colleagues, or they want to relocate and be closer to their family, but still do high-level work. Maybe they're relocating to a small town where they wouldn't have the same opportunities as they would if they were working in office in a big city. And some just want to scale back on work. Whatever the reason, there are so many reasons to embark on a freelance legal career. But, if you find yourself resonating with 1, 2, 3 of these, you're not alone. And these are just a few of the reasons why more and more lawyers are turning to a full-time freelance career and having a lot of success with that. But again, more and more, I think probably the biggest push for this is just wanting to have control over your schedule and having more flexibility to make your career bend to your lifestyle rather than having to bend your lifestyle to your career. Okay. So without fail, I'm sure a lot of you here are curious to know more about how much can you make with a freelance legal career. Sorry, just taking a quick look to see if we had questions in the chat. Looks like not yet. So how much can you make? Okay. My short answer to this is it's up to you. You can make as much as you want as a freelancer. I think that when you are considering embarking on a freelance legal career, whether that's part-time or full-time, you need to come up with what is the number that would help support you and your family and your lifestyle, and then work towards that. And then you can always increase or decrease depending on what you have going on. But there are countless freelancers out there who share stories with us about how they are now making as much, if not more money as a full-time freelance lawyer than they did working at a law firm. One such freelancer, I don't know if she's on here today. Let me do a quick scan. No, she's not on here today, but one such freelancer was Kelsey, who is from Wisconsin, and she shared on her LinkedIn this post that in October of 21, she resigned from her law firm job. She wanted to become a full-time freelancer because it was a better fit for her young family. She was pregnant at the time. Talk about a leap of faith. I switched jobs to a different firm when I was 5 or 6 months pregnant. That was very nerve-wracking, but she had her baby, took some time off, really launched the full-time legal freelance career, in April of 2022. And then she posted this in July. So between April and July of last year, she had revved up her freelance legal career working directly with a couple of attorneys directly, and then also with LAWCLERK. And she exceeded, this post was the week that she exceeded what she had made at the law firm in her prior job. So just in a few months coming off of maternity leave, she was able to match her law firm earnings with a much more flexible lifestyle that aligns with the needs of her young family. So I just love this post, which is why I wanted to share it. So how can you make this happen for yourself? Okay. Probably one of the first things you need to know is you need to know your value as a freelance lawyer. Okay. And if you're not sure what that is, then we have some data to help you. Again, this is from our friends at Clio, their legal trends report. This was a survey that they did of the respondents to find the kind of average billable hour nationwide. So the green line is the lawyer rate. The average billable hour according to Clio in January of 2022 was $313 an hour. Now, for some of you in some areas that would seem very low, other people it might seem too high, but don't fear. Clio also provided an appendix at the end of their report that goes into the details of hourly rates by state. Okay, this is just a little snippet of that full report, but you can go find your average hourly rate by state. There's even a chart that then does an adjustment to that based of cost of living and how that is different across the country. And last but not least, in the report, they also go into the average hourly rates by practice area. Now, they don't combine those with average hourly rates by practice area by each state. These are nationwide, but you can look at the two pieces of data together to figure out what could you charge for your service as a freelance lawyer? What would be reasonable? All right, so let's go through a couple of examples to see how this might look. So first, example number one, let's pretend that you're a freelance lawyer in California. I know we have some of those on here today. And let's say that your practice area is IP. Okay, so we're going to go back to this data from Clio. And so this is the range of rates they found for law firms, for lawyers and non-lawyers, if you're an attorney in California. Now we're going to add in our hourly rate by your practice area. So over here, the hourly rate for a lawyer who does IP work is $368. So you can see over here, the hourly rate in California in general is $358, a little bit of a premium for an IP practice area. So that gives you kind of a ballpark of what your services might be worth at a market rate. Now, keep in mind, these are hourly market rates that would be charged to a client of a law firm, not a freelance lawyer. So we have to do an adjustment. What adjustment do we have to do? So a good rule of thumb is that we find most hiring attorneys or most hiring law firms are generally willing to pay about 30 to 40% of the market rate. Okay, so if the billable rate to a client, the market rate is, $100 an hour, then the freelancer's rate is going to be about 30 to 40. Okay, that's easy math here. But let's go into this a little bit more. So let's say you've got California freelancer and IP. They could very reasonably charge $368 an hour. I just took this rate from the IP. And 30% of that, so that'd be on the lower side, would be $110 an hour for hourly type freelance work. Of course, some work is project-based, and we'll go into some examples of that too. But this could be a very reasonable rate for an IP freelance attorney in California. So taking these numbers, let's say you decide, for your lifestyle, your goal is to bill and collect 80 hours a month. Okay, that's less than a full-time law firm job. That would be revenue of about $8,800 each month. And over the course of a year, that's over six figures. That's over $105,000. Well, it's $105,600. Okay. These are really easy numbers. You see now, I hope that this shows you how you can kind of play with this to see, okay, if I'm doing freelance work in this area or that area, because maybe you have experience in a couple different areas of law and you're not sure which one you want to freelance in. You could look at the value of the service based on these average rates and this data. And then you can convert it into a freelance rate and then play around with, hey, if I work 10 hours a week, 20 hours of work, 30 hours a week, what kind of income could I make as a freelance lawyer? Okay. And keep in mind, you're going to have a ramp up period until you hit that steady level of work, but this is doable, folks. Whatever you're looking for in terms of flexibility and lifestyle and compensation, it's doable. You just have to put your mind to it. Okay, so this was one example. Let's go through another one just to further illustrate how this would flow. So let's say now you're in Ohio and you practice in civil litigation. You want to do litigation work, litigation support work. There's huge demand for that. Okay, so hourly rates for Ohio For a lawyer, the average is $238. And for civil litigation nationwide, the average is $306. So we've got kind of a range here between $238 and $306 nationwide for civil litigation, okay? Now, of course, other factors are going to come into what is a reasonable rate for you to charge for freelance work. Your years of experience. If you've been doing this 20 years, you're going to charge more than if you've been doing this 2 years. You know, your track record. If you've first chaired 200 trials, you're going to charge more for that expertise than if you've never first chaired a trial or second chaired a trial. So there's all sorts of other factors that go into computing that rate. But I hope at least this is a good starting point to give you some ideas and to help yourself work through this. All right, so back to this one. Again, we're not charging market rates for freelance work. We're charging probably about 30 to 40% of that with adjustments based for experience, et cetera. Okay, so if we're in Ohio practicing civil litigation, I think a very reasonable market rate to consider would be $270 an hour. That falls between the $238 and the $306. Okay, I just went with $270. So again, taking 30% of that on the lower end, $90 an hour would be a very reasonable rate for a freelance lawyer in Ohio to charge for work related to civil litigation. Okay, so let's say you want to work 120 hours a month. You want to work 30 hours a week, which I hear so many lawyers say, I wish I only had to work like 30 hours a week. Like, I think a lot of lawyers daydream about a 30-hour-a-week lifestyle, probably because that would be likely half of what they're working at a law firm setting. So, you know, if you worked and collected 120 hours a month at this rate, you could bring in almost $11,000 a month over the course of a year, almost $130,000. I mean, that is a really good living, especially if you're in Ohio and this is a part-time gig and you still have time with your family and time to focus on your own health and well-being. I just think this is a really appealing route for so many lawyers to break away from that traditional in-office law firm model. So that's another example that you can consider. All right, so I've been talking through hourly work examples because, of course, we lawyers, we love and we hate our billable hour, but that is, for better or worse, the way a lot of legal work gets done. But I want to walk you through and make sure you're familiar with the 3 ways you can get freelance legal work through lawclerk.legal, because, of course, that's what I'm all about, getting you work at lawclerk.legal. So option 1 is project-based work. Okay, this has been our bread and butter since day one, since the company started. We have offered project-based work. The way a project works is a busy attorney logs into their account, posts a piece of work as a project, and connects with a freelance lawyer to get that one piece of work done. This is done at a flat fee rate per project. The hiring attorney just says, hey, I need this work done. I'm willing to pay this much. And so when you look at projects, consider if you have the expertise to do the work, but also know that isn't an hourly rate. That is a flat fee rate for the entirety of the work. I want to tell you about my most recent project that I did because I am an attorney. I still have a small practice in addition to my work at LawClerk. I had one of my estate planning clients needed a consulting services agreement. He had retired and he wanted to start some consulting work. I said, great. I knew I could get that on LawClerk. So I posted it as a project. I paid a premium because I knew there was probably a very smart freelancer out there who had already done this work and had a template and can do this in a pretty quick amount of time, but I did still pay a premium. The freelancer I hired for this project is full-time freelance lawyer. Well, really like a part-time freelance lawyer because he also is a ski instructor in Colorado. And so he apologized. He got the work done to me like almost 2 days early. And he was like embarrassed that he didn't get it back to me the same day because he had been teaching ski lessons to little kids that morning. And I was like, well, that is really cool. So, you know, here's one of our freelancers who is living the dream as a ski instructor in Colorado, but also doing freelance work and getting, I mean, he got paid a very good rate for that single project that he did, probably enough money for groceries for, I'm going to guess, a month if he's got a family. But anyway, so that's an example of project work. You do one piece of work. It's like a one-off thing where you help a lawyer tackle this item on their to-do list. Okay. The next way you can get freelance legal work through LawClerk is through our new hourly associate program. Okay. Hourly associate is just what you would think it is. You are connected with a lawyer who needs your help in a one-to-one working relationship, and they will from time to time send you work. When you do work and bill time to them through LawClerk, you will be paid an hourly rate. The hiring attorney does set that rate. So know that when you're looking at these opportunities, but this is a great program for you to find someone to get regular work. It's not going to be, it's not always going to be 20 hours a month. It could ebb and flow. It could be 10 hours some months, 30 hours some months, but it is a way that you can pick up a good amount of work. And of course, over time, if you prove yourself and you prove your good work with this attorney, they're going to lean on you even more. You're going to become their go-to and they're going to send you even more work. Okay. So this is kind of our middle option, is this hourly program. And I can tell you, this is sparking huge demand. This is the way lawyers know how to assign work to an associate, whether it's in their office or it's outsourced. So we expect over the next few years to see a ton of work coming to freelance lawyers through our hourly program. So definitely check that out and keep an eye on those opportunities. Last, but certainly not least, the third way that we offer for freelance lawyers to get work through LawClerk is through our remote associate subscription program. This program is for ongoing, steady, more predictable amounts of work where you're matched again with one attorney in a one-to-one working relationship. And the program starts at 30 hours a month and can go up to 160 hours a month or more. The program has two parts. It is intended primarily to help busy attorneys with support for the written work where they need some extra help. But if certain specifications are met, it can evolve into what we call a full attorney program, where you would actually be able to make court appearances, take depositions, all of those types of things for the attorney, as long as certain requirements are met. So, subscription is really the next level of ways that you can get work as a freelance lawyer, but also you can support these growing firms. So again, just as a recap, the spectrum of ways you can get help or get work through LawClerk begins at a single project, a one-off. Kind of middle option is the hourly, where it can kind of ebb and flow, the volume of work, or a subscription is an ongoing, pretty steady amount of work from one attorney. So these are the three ways that we can help you find more work as a freelance lawyer. Okay, so now I'm going to have a little Yoda moment here. Okay, one of the biggest questions that freelance lawyers ask us is, how can I get more work through LawClerk? They know it's competitive. We have a huge network nationwide. We have a lot of talent, so it is very, very competitive. I have two pieces of Yoda advice for you to help you hopefully get more work. Okay, number one, when you apply for work, you have the option to leave a note for the attorney. Don't copy and paste something from your resume. Don't copy and paste a canned response onto every single thing you apply for. Take the time to leave a customized, thoughtful note highlighting your experience with this type of work, why you can do an amazing job, and sell yourself a little bit as to why you can really help them. It's going to really make you stand out. A lot of our hiring attorneys tell us that really they don't go look at your resumes. They look at the notes, they look at your ratings, and that's how they decide who to choose for projects or subscriptions. Maybe not subscriptions, they do look for resumes for that, but leave a customized professional note highlighting why you are the best person for the job. Okay. Number two, on your resume, because again, for ongoing work through hourly and subscriptions, they are looking at resumes. You want to make sure the resume reflects the work you actually did. Okay, here's what I mean by that. Let's say, you have the resume, the standard resume that shows that you clerked for this judge between these dates, and then you were at this firm and that firm and that firm. It's not going to say that when you were at the first firm, a quarter of your workload was family law work, or that at the next firm, half of your work was immigration work. You really want to reflect the practice areas you were working in any trial experience that you may have had if you're a litigator. So maybe go take another look at your resume and see if you can paint a clearer picture of the actual work you were doing when you were a part of these different firms. And that's going to help you also get work, because if you have some experience in family law work, but your resume doesn't show that anywhere, like the words family law are not on your resume, it's going to be hard for the hiring attorney to understand why you would be good for that fit, for that work. So last but not least, because we are definitely committed to helping you get more work, I want you to know that we are going to be soon, little teaser here, revamping the profiles of our freelance lawyers on LawClerk. And so an enhanced profile builder tool is on the way, early 2023. So stay tuned. And when that rolls out, you'll be hearing all about it. And we'll definitely encourage you to take advantage of the new tools in our updated profile builder to enhance your profile so that you will hopefully get selected for more work through LawClerk. Okay. hopefully by now you've seen we are committed to finding more work, offering different ways for you to get work as a freelance lawyer so that you can build that freelance legal career that you've maybe daydreamt about. Whatever that might look like for you, I really want to encourage you to define your own measure of success and happiness as a lawyer, and to take the plunge to go out and start freelancing and working with other attorneys in that type of a role. But you're not doing it alone. I want to make sure you know that. Every freelance lawyer who signs up through LawClerk to do freelance legal work is matched with one of our advisors. These are our 2 advisors that focus specifically on our freelance lawyers, Nagesti and Dustin. And so when you sign up, you'll be matched with one of them, and they are fantastic resources to help answer questions, to help make sure you know when work comes available that is in your area of specialty. And they're great people. So definitely take time to connect with them when they reach out to introduce themselves. And this is a good time to remind you that if you have not yet signed up to be a freelance lawyer with LawClerk.legal, there is no time like the present. Go to LawClerk.legal, click on the sign up button. There's no fee to sign up, and there's no monthly fees to be a part of our freelance lawyer network. So, that is step one. If you've been toying with the idea of picking up a little freelance work, whether that's just to supplement your income with a few projects every month, whether you want to do 20 or 40 hours of work through an hourly or a subscription type program, whatever it might be, the first step is, of course, to sign up, make that account, build up your profile so that you'll be ready to go when you want to apply for opportunities. So reach out to Nagesti, reach out to Dustin. You can also reach us at support@lawclerk.legal. So I hope that this was helpful today. This is the time, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat or drop them in the Q&A box. I always think our freelance lawyers have the best questions after these webinars. If you enjoyed this video, we have a lot of other video resources on our YouTube channel. Go follow our channel so you'll get notified when we have new videos that go live. And I'd love it if you would connect with us on your favorite social media platform, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Whatever it is, we're on there. Go connect with us so that you can keep up with all of the latest LawClerk happenings. That's the end of the main program today, folks. Again, I'm going to stick around. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. If not, I wish you all the best with your freelance legal career in 2023 and beyond. I know sometimes it takes a few minutes to type out those questions, so I'm going to be patient. I'll be hanging around. All right, here's a great question from Angie. Thanks for your question, Angie. How do hiring firms feel about the freelancer working from abroad? She says she's a bankruptcy attorney, wants to move to Portugal, but still wants to work. Any issues there? Oh, this is so fascinating, Angie. I'm going to say, something like a bankruptcy practice, that's fantastic because it's a national practice. You could work with people all across the US. We do have a number of freelance attorneys living abroad. I can think of one in Italy off the top of my head. I can think of one in Costa Rica. And I know there's others, but those are the 2 that are coming to mind. So there are firms that are very open to this. I think the main things to highlight there is to be open about the fact of where you're working so that it's not a surprise, and to express what your kind of usual working hours are. If you've adjusted your lifestyle and your day to be, to be available when the US-based firm maybe wants to connect for a phone call or a video chat to talk about certain things. But this can also be a big advantage. A lot of attorneys, I've heard of a lot of attorneys maybe on the West Coast Pacific time say that they like to hire and work with freelancers on East Coast time, because they know they're going to be up early working before the West Coast people are even awake yet. They can get a head start on that work. So a lot of people might see that as a big advantage if they have someone like you available to kind of work in different hours and have a jump start on drafting motions or, prepping different pleadings before the rest of us start their day. So we have seen a lot of firms be very open to that. And I think that's an exciting idea, to go live and work abroad and live the dream. So, all right. Okay. All right. Lots of questions on the chat. Sorry. Let me get in here. Monica asks, what is the YouTube channel? If you just go on to youtube.com and type LawClerk, it'll pop up, or easy to find. Lindsay asked, do hiring attorneys typically prefer to work with freelancers who are barred in their state? I'm going to give you a very lawyerly answer to that. It depends. Some do, some don't. A lot of lawyers I talk to say, I don't want to hire anybody in my state. I want to hire the best, most talented freelancer with experience in this area of law as my secret weapon. So now, some attorneys obviously would need to hire within their state if it's a state-specific issue, or if they were hiring through our subscription program for an attorney to make court appearances or take depositions, et cetera. But most attorneys are open to working with freelance attorneys in other states. Again, it just kind of depends on the practice area and what their needs are. You know, in a practice area like family law, we find that family law attorneys in a community property state like California are generally open to working with other freelance attorneys who are in other community property states because the laws are similar. Immigration practice is national, bankruptcy, appellate practice. There's a lot of things that it really doesn't matter where you're at. And we are continually trying to encourage and educate our attorneys on why they should hire the best talent, regardless of where the freelancer is located. Great question from Mark. He asked if we've considered adding a video into the freelancer's profile. There is a video feature in the new profile builder that's coming up. So you're going to like that. It's on the way. And then he asked, how can I find out my rating through LawClerk? I believe if you reach out to your advisor, they can help give you some feedback on what ratings you've received for your work through LawClerk. All right, question from Jonathan, who's joining us from Israel. Welcome, Jonathan. Are we open to foreign lawyers too? So at this point in time, LawClerk is only for US licensed attorneys, both on the hiring and the freelancing side. Of course, we have a goal and a big dream of expanding this service into other countries, but for now we are limited to US-based attorneys or US licensed. You can be US licensed living abroad, but you do need to be US licensed. Another question from an attorney in Louisiana asking, she says that the majority of opportunities she sees seem to be for other states like California and Florida. Is there a high demand for attorneys in Louisiana through LawClerk? What I would say is we do get some. Obviously, Louisiana is a smaller market, but I would focus more on your practice area. And if you're able to help your practice area, your expertise in some of the larger states like Florida, Texas, California. So definitely, try to shift the conversation more to the practice area and your experience rather than the state where you're located and barred. These are great questions, everyone. Thank you so much. Ellie Rose asked about legal assistant positions. So again, right now, LawClerk is an attorney to attorney service. So we help busy attorneys connect with freelance lawyers for outsourced work when they need help in that way. We are not venturing into the paralegal or legal assistant positions right now. There are a lot of services that do. If you're looking for those opportunities, any of paralegals that are looking for freelance paralegal type opportunities, I always like to send you to Woven Legal. Again, that's Woven Legal, and they specialize in very similar to what we do, but just for paralegals. On the legal assistant side, look at a company called Get Staffed Up. Get Staffed Up. They provide a bunch of different support services. We're kind of the only one for lawyers. And, together we can complement some of these other services to give the law firm exactly the help they need. So check those out, and there's some great opportunities there. Another question from Jonathan, who again was joining us from Israel. If he said, since our service is for US licensed attorneys, what would be the preferred state of license? Really doesn't matter. We do see, if you look at the population of the different states, the highest demand for our services comes from the states with the bigger population. So New York, Florida, Texas, California, New Jersey, DC. I would encourage you to, look at your different options, and it follows very closely with general population in those states. So, All right, here's another question from Mark. Mark asks, how would you describe the advocate role of the advisor in encouraging our selection? Well, number one, we never tell our hiring attorneys who they should pick, but certainly our advisors work together that if they have gotten to know a freelancer who they know, has had deep trial experience or experience on whatever need the lawyer has that maybe hasn't been fully reflected in their resume or their profile, they will communicate that to the attorney and encourage them to at least consider them for the role. So they definitely are working to make sure and advocate that a candidate is on the radar of the hiring attorney, but we don't go so far as to be like, you have to pick this person. So definitely getting to know the advisors helps them know when you would be a good fit for work, and then lets our team help make sure you're highlighted and on the radar. All right, looks like the questions are slowing down. These were great. Thank you again for, committing your time today to join the live program. We will be adding the recording of the program to our YouTube channel, so check that out. And as always, if I can be a resource, don't hesitate to reach out to our team here at LAWCLERK, and we're happy to speak with you and do what we can to help you succeed with your career as a freelance lawyer. So I'm going to sign off for now. Thanks, folks. Have a great rest of your day. And if you haven't already done so, come visit us at lawclerk.legal very soon. Thank you.